I'm ready. It's 6:30. Let's get started. I'm Ed Foley. I'm the president of the Tucson Amateur Astronomy Association. This is our monthly general meeting. We meet here in the auditorium at the Stewart Observatory at the first Friday of the month, usually most months. And thank you for coming. We've got members here in the room. We have members on Zoom, and we have visitors that are joining us on social media. So we've got a good group, and that group is here to listen to a very interesting story. We have a speaker who is a member. Many of you know Michael Bakich. He is known to many because he is a prolific writer, and they'd seen him for 17 years at Astronomy Magazine before he retired. And then he and Holley moved here to Tucson to relax. And I've noticed that he's I noticed that Michael is still appearing in Astronomy Magazine. So he can't stop writing. He also can't stop talking. And he is an expert on so many astronomy topics. But when you know that he has chased 16 eclipses already, I think he's particularly interested in that particular topic. And we'll hear a little bit about that from him tonight. So, Michael, if you can come and tell us what's happening this year.
Thank you very much. I'll take that applause, Okay, so need to share, is that right? Okay. Share. Boom. Okay. Okay. Share. Okay. Well, thank you, Ed. Since Holley and I moved here in 2019, we've only known May as the president. This is the first time that we've had somebody new introduce me. So thank you very much. It's great to have you. I hate to open on a sad note, but since this talk is about eclipses and this particular eclipse, this past week we lost a giant, maybe the giant in the science and chasing of eclipses, and that's Fred Espenak, the man who was known as Mr. Eclipse. He passed away at his home this past Sunday, and he was something. I remember back in the 1980s, he started putting out these 50 or 60 page booklets, paperback booklets that were eclipse bulletins talking about the next upcoming total solar eclipse. And man, I just couldn't wait to get my hands on each one of those. And he did that for, wow, probably almost 20 years. And he's given probably more talks than I have about eclipses, and that's saying something, and generated maps. And I served with him on the American Astronomical Society Eclipse Task Force, starting back in 2014, all the way through this past eclipse here in the US last year. So Fred, you will be missed, and he was really something. Okay, just in case we have some newcomers to this talk, I want to talk a little bit about what a solar eclipse is. A solar eclipse is the exact lineup of three objects: the sun, the moon, and Earth, with the moon in the middle. And if circumstances are right and the lineup is right, and the moon and Earth are at the right distances from each other, and Earth is at the right distance from the sun, an eclipse will happen. And there are three possible types of solar eclipses. There's the total eclipse, which the moon totally covers the sun's disk. There is a partial eclipse when it's a near miss and it only covers part of the sun's disk. And then there's the one in the center there called the annular eclipse. And that's either when the moon is far away from Earth or Earth is too close and the sun looks large, that even though it's a central eclipse, the moon doesn't cover the entire sun's face, but there's a ring of sunlight around the moon. This happened last in 2023, and the Latin word for ring is annulus. So this is an annular eclipse. Safety. You have to use a solar filter during the partial phases of a solar eclipse. Even if it's a total eclipse, during the partial phases, you have to use a solar filter. And here we have three examples. At the top, Holley's using a number 14 welder's glass. Mary over here is using Eclipse glasses, approved, safe, $2 each Eclipse glasses. And then you can look at the sun, of course, with telescopes or binoculars, but you have to have the filter at the front end of your optics, okay? But just as important, you must not use a filter during totality because you won't see anything. So get rid of the glasses just during totality, just during those few minutes. So let's talk, this isn't really working I'm sorry? Sorry. Step through this real quick. Okay. I'm actually here to talk about this particular eclipse, the total solar eclipse that's going to happen August 2nd, 2027. A few details about the eclipse. The magnitude of this eclipse is 1.079. So anytime the magnitude of a solar eclipse is less than 1, it's a partial eclipse. Anytime it's 1 or greater, it's a total eclipse. And this one is, believe it or not, quite a bit greater. What this says is that the moon's diameter is 7.9% greater than the sun's, almost 8% greater than the sun's diameter for this particular eclipse, which translates to a magnificent duration of totality of 6 minutes, 23 seconds. Okay, 6 minutes, 23 seconds. And the path width is 160 miles wide. Okay, as a comparison, back in 2020, or last year in 2024, the path width was about 120 miles wide. So the moon is a lot closer to Earth, it looks bigger, and it blocks the sun for a longer period of time. So this is kind of a simple animation of what the shadow will look like. The outer lighter shadow is called the penumbra. If you're under the penumbra, you're going to see a partial eclipse. The inner darker part is the umbra. It's the same root word where we get the word umbrella. Okay, that's where you'll see a total eclipse, and that is where you want to be, because a partial eclipse, I mean, it really, let's not even talk about it. Okay, here's a word that years ago I swore I would never talk about in a public lecture, but I'm going to talk about it because this happens to be kind of interesting this time, and I think you'll see why. Saros is a length of time. it's actually 18 years, 11 days, and 8 hours, okay, when a similar eclipse will occur. Now, if it were 18 years or 18 years and any number of days, then the eclipse would happen pretty much the same place on Earth. However, there's that extra 8 hours in. So every 18 years or so, there's a similar eclipse, but Earth has rotated 1/3 of the way around. So the eclipse doesn't happen in the same place. 18 years later, it's rotated another third of the way around, and so on. Okay? So the Egypt eclipse is the 38th in what's called Saros 136. Now, there are a number of these going on all the time. Saros is probably 50 or 60 of them, because it's not just 18 years, 18 years, 18 years, and those are the only eclipses. There are a lot of other eclipses in between, and each one belongs to one of these Saros series. So this particular series started back in the 13th century, and it will end in the 23rd century. So it's about a millennium long to complete all 71 eclipses. So most of the time, when I talk to a group, if I say, remember 34 years ago, people look at me and say, what? I wasn't even born then. However, this group, I notice a few gray hairs. Okay, so some of you may remember this particular eclipse, July 11th, 1991. Anybody see that eclipse? Yeah, a couple of us. This was a fabulous eclipse. It was the only eclipse where I ever observed a deep sky object during totality. I had binoculars and I looked toward Orion, and I actually saw the Orion Nebula during totality. It was magnificent. So this eclipse, more than 6 minutes of totality, happened in 1991 in Mexico. Okay, let's skip ahead 18 years plus. And the next eclipse in this Saros happened in the Western Pacific, also more than 6 minutes of totality. So a similar eclipse 18 years later, part of this Saros cycle. The next one, and you can probably tell, 2009 plus 18, 2027, is the eclipse in China, the one I'm talking about, in Egypt, the one I'm talking about today. More than 6 minutes of totality. And what's interesting is that the next eclipse in this Saros cycle is the next Great American eclipse, okay? And that will happen in 2045. Now, it's not the next total solar eclipse that will touch the 48 states. That actually happens in 2044, okay? But it's, I'm starting to sound jaded. I don't mean to indicate that the solar eclipses, but I mean, because they're all spectacular. But that eclipse in 2044 only touches 2 states, Montana and North Dakota, and the climate prospects, not that great. But this one, take a look at this, first touches the US in California, and then goes all the way across and leaves the US in Florida. And in Florida, the whole path in Florida, if you're on the center line through the whole state, you'll see at least 6 minutes of totality. That's a worthy eclipse. The next longer eclipse than the one in Egypt in 2 years won't happen until 2113. So I'm probably not going to make that one, but some of you might. So this eclipse in 2027 will be the longest for the rest of our lives for most of us. So might be wise to put it on your bucket list. Okay, so in 2027, totality touches 11 countries, but the main one for many reasons is Egypt. So let's take a look at a couple maps, and we can see that totality here starts, if you wanted to be at the Rock of Gibraltar during this eclipse, the climate prospects are good, not as good as in Egypt, but they're pretty good there. And you'd see a little bit more than 4.5 minutes of totality. So that's pretty much where totality first touches land and then moves through a number of different countries. And then take a look at its path through Egypt. So totality is the center of this path. Unfortunately, totality doesn't touch either of Egypt's two largest cities, Cairo or Alexandria, but it does carve quite the path through the country. I could shorten this section to 4 words. It will be clear. I've never been able to say that before. How many eclipses have I been to? 16 total solar eclipses. Never been able to say that. I was telling Ed earlier that Holley and I, when we went to the 2019 eclipse in Chile, when we landed, we could tell that the week was going to be clear. That was just a few days before the eclipse. We knew we were going to see it. I'm standing here in front of you more than 2 years before the 2027 eclipse and saying, I guarantee it's going to be clear. Now, you don't have to take my word for it, because there's a Canadian meteorologist named Jay Anderson who predicts and develops maps for total solar eclipses. So let's take a look at a couple of his. So this is the average afternoon cloud fraction. And as you can see, blue is good. So, take a look at Egypt. It's almost impossible at this time of year for clouds to form. Let's look at this in a different way. So again, good is at the bottom, and our group is going to be here at Luxor. So it's pretty much guaranteed. So there won't be any clouds. But I have been asked, well, Michael, it is Egypt. The desert there doesn't have anywhere near the type of vegetation that we have around here in Tucson. What about dust storms? Okay, it's a legitimate concern. So Jay has also done a map of dust storms, and you can see that lighter is better. And although it's not totally white, Egypt is about as good as it gets. So there may be some blowing dust in the air, but it won't be thick enough to obscure the view of the eclipse, okay? And usually it's before midday that most of the dust roams around in this part of the world. So dust should not be a problem either. I guarantee clouds. Can't guarantee dust, but shouldn't be too bad. What about the sky during totality? Okay, well, one of the things that you'll definitely see is Venus. Okay, Venus shines at magnitude minus 3.9, and it's only 3 degrees away from the sun. That's just 6 solar diameters. The sun's about a ½ degree wide. So Venus is going to be very close to the sun, and during totality, it will be there. Will the corona reach out that far? Probably not, but you never know. Okay, 3 degrees that would be a large corona. We'll also see Jupiter. It's on the other side of the sun, 22 degrees away. Okay, Jupiter will be nice and bright. And then Mercury is about 3 times as far away from the sun as Venus, but it's also nice and bright, magnitude minus 1.4. So those 3 planets we will see during totality. And actually, I'm gonna couch this in a safe way to say this. 10 or 15 minutes before totality, we'll be able to see Venus. But again, it's only 3 degrees away from the sun. So, you'll have to stand behind, something, or really carefully shield your eyes to be able to see it safely before totality. But during totality, no problem at all. Now, the stars, we'll probably see a couple stars. Certainly Procyon is bright enough. And Pollux is probably bright enough. I don't know if Regulus is. It glows at magnitude 1.3. I have seen fainter stars during the 91 eclipse. I actually saw a magnitude 1.7 star. Regulus is a little brighter than that. Of course, if you point binoculars toward Jupiter, you'll definitely see Regulus nearby. So you can do that. Although, hunting around for stars when this magnificent spectacle of the corona is in the sky and everything's going on around you is not the best use of time, even during an eclipse where totality lasts 6.5 minutes. Okay, newsflash. Holley and I are leading an expedition to Egypt. Okay. And our tour provider is a company called Eclipse Traveler. Eclipse Traveler is a company that Astronomy Magazine has used a number of times. We'll also use for this particular eclipse and for the one next year, probably to Spain, probably not going to go to Iceland, but probably to Spain. That's where the best climate prospects are, in Spain. However, the best climate is the south of Spain in 2026. Problem is, the eclipse at mid-eclipse is only 4 degrees above the horizon. So, you're going to have to choose. I mean, if you're at the water's edge, you're good, but you have to be really careful not to have a building or something block your view, even if it is clear. So the maximum totality, 6 minutes, 23 seconds, actually 6:22.5, will occur 4 miles southeast of Luxor, the fabulous archaeological site of Luxor. And at that time, at mid-eclipse, the sun will be up here, 82 degrees high, only 8 degrees away from the overhead point. So, it's good and bad. It's good because nothing is going to block your view. But if you want to take a photograph, you're probably not going to get a photograph that combines the eclipse with anything on the ground because it's essentially overhead. Okay. As I said, I've been to 16 total solar eclipses. I've never taken a photograph of one. I mean, before and after I take before and after I take a lot of pictures of people, of equipment, and things like that. But I've never, during the eclipse, it's my eyes, binoculars, telescope, and the sun and moon and the dance that they're doing in the sky. I've never photographed it. And I was photo editor of Astronomy Magazine for 17 years. So I've seen all the great shots. And although I might, at some point be tempted to point a camera toward the sun, I really don't want to do all the processing necessary to pull out all the great details. And I've got lots of friends who can do that and send me their images. So some of the places, okay, so we have the eclipse, and it's, let's just say, guaranteed to be clear. Okay, so that's the main selling point of this trip. But there's so much more. Really excited to be actually going to Egypt for the very first time. The eclipse happens just outside of Luxor, and that's where we'll be. Our location, because the point of greatest eclipse is not a real well-developed area, we're going to be close to there, but not at the point. So we'll have 1 second less totality than the 623. So it'll be 621 and a half where we will be. 6 minutes of totality. Yeah, I mean, incredible. So Luxor. You know, as you look at these, and I don't have very many pictures, but as you look at these pictures, they're cool and they're really neat. But think about actually standing here and having somebody take your picture, make it your picture. It'll be a once in a lifetime opportunity. We'll also visit Dendera, the temple complex there, which is famous for the zodiac, the maps of the zodiac, the Dendera zodiac that were found there, which I think now reside in the Louvre, you know, where a lot of Egyptian artifacts now reside. We'll visit the temple of Hatshepsut, and it is truly spectacular and in amazing condition for the number of thousands of years that it's been in existence. Yeah, we'll see this guy, the Great Sphinx, and also in the same area, various pyramids in the Valley of the Kings and then the Valley of the Queens, the Giza Plateau. Also, the Aswan High Dam, which is really an engineering marvel. And I know there's something else, something, maybe I'm just forgetting something else, you know. Yes, we will spend quite a bit of time in the Museum of Egyptian Antiquities, basking in the glow, the golden glow of the treasures of Tutankhamun. And that's just one wing. I mean, there is so much here that is just beyond belief. I have not visited there, but I have friends who have, and they've told me some amazing stories. So those are some of the things that we will visit. The first 4 days in Egypt we'll spend in a hotel in Luxor. Then we will board this ship and travel up and down the Nile, seeing the various other sites. So this is the Nile Capital cruise ship, and it's one of the best ships on the Nile at that time. And so that's where we'll be for 7 days. So we only have to change venues once. So it's not like we have to pack every night and go to a different spot. We'll be on board ship, and everything will be secure there. If you want to read more about this particular eclipse, the library here has a copy of the atlas that I wrote with Michael Zeiler. You can read more about the other places where the 2027 eclipse, and actually any eclipse through 2045. So if you're even mildly interested, take a picture of this, email me, and I will send you the itinerary and a booking form, just in case, you know, you're sorely tempted to come with us. This is going to be the trip of a lifetime. It really is. Leave that up for another second or two. And finally, just remember, as I always say, it's all about totality. Thank you very much. Questions? Yes, sir. Yes. Yes, indeed. Well, me for sure. My group has, they've allocated 30 cabins to my group. I know we have at least 10 left. Okay, so, and maybe more than that, because I really haven't, this is the first talk that I've done. I wrote a story on astronomy.com when Holley and I were at Starmus. For those of you that know what Starmus is, in La Palma, I was the host there, and I did a little spiel, very short spiel, and a lot of people have emailed me about the trip. So I've sent out a lot of information, but it's definitely not full. But I have 30 cabins, so I will at least be one of the lecturers, and there may be others.
Can you use a microphone, Doug? Ed, can you give him the mic?
What's the expected cost, and is airfare included?
Airfare is not included, and the cost for double occupancy for one of the cabins, it's not cheap. It's $8,200. So, I mean, when you think about 11 days in Egypt, seeing all this, seeing an eclipse, I guess it's not too bad, but I mean, it's still, you know. So, but it is a once in a lifetime experience. Just a second, Paul. Microphone's coming.
Oh, okay.
Just wait for the mic. There
Um,
you are, Paul.
Are you considering leading a trip to the one the following year in Australia?
Astronomy Magazine has already been talking with Eclipse Traveler about the Australia eclipse. And I think that one is over 5 minutes of totality.
Yes, where it is, it's 5 minutes and 10, because I've been considering going to that one.
Right.
I would feel far more comfortable in Australia than I would in Egypt.
Yeah. You know,
Politically.
Egypt it's an interesting place. You know, there's been turmoil there, but they value one thing above all else, and it's where they make their money, and that's tourism. So everybody that I've ever known who's gone to Egypt has felt totally safe there. I mean, now some of these other countries, you can go to Libya and see this eclipse. You know, you can go to, you know, some of these other countries that, you know, a little bit dicier, but well, and Spain, of course, but of the countries in the Arabian Peninsula, I think Egypt is by far the safest one.
Will the moon eclipse Venus as it goes by?
Not, you know, that's a good question. Venus is east-southeast of, no, the moon will be coming from the west, or appearing to come from the west. So no, it won't. Yeah. Yeah. It would, and it also have to be a lot closer, because for the moon to travel 3 degrees, it would take
Chip.
most of a day.
2 questions. Is there like an official record for the person who's seen the most number of eclipses? And if it is it Fred?
Fred is certainly up there. Sorry? Yeah, Jay Pasikoff, who we lost a couple years ago, also has seen a number of eclipses. And another one who just passed away, Glenn Schneider. I don't know if you knew Glenn or not, but Glenn Schneider had seen a lot of eclipses. I mean, you know, I think 16 is a lot. He was like in the 40s for total solar eclipses. I mean, yeah, I've seen annular eclipses, I've seen lunar eclipses, partial eclipses. They don't count. It's all about standing in the moon's shadow in the middle of the day. So yeah. So but Fred, I know Fred was either near or above 40. So, and I'm sure that you know, he passed behind the moon one last time on his way out to the great beyond. I like to think that.
I also had another question. What the maps you were showing for this solar eclipse coming up, when was it made? Mainly because I'm just thinking how back in 2024, some physicists used an updated value for the exact size and shape of the sun and the moon.
Right. The maps that I showed were done in 2022. Michael Zeiler did those. We took into account the best lunar diameter and especially the best limb profile. So on the edge of the moon, you have mountains. Okay, and so especially the phenomenon of Bailey's beads occurs there, where just before totality or just as totality is ending, these little beads of light appear in the valleys between the mountains. So to get those right, you have to have a really accurate lunar profile along its edge. And people have been working on that for a couple hundred years, actually. So, but we're really close. I mean, for our use, we're well within a 1/10 of a second with all these times, with all the times that you see. Yeah, well within. Yeah, and probably more like 1/100th of a second. Yes.
And for those on Zoom, if you want to type in any of your questions on the chat, go ahead and do that while we finish up here.
So I know Egypt was pretty ancient Egypt was pretty good with astronomy and stuff. Is there any like architecture in Luxor that will I realize it's going to sound a bit silly, but Indiana Jones that will have cast some sort of shadow or do anything during the eclipse?
Well, I believe we're going to be visiting. No, I don't. To answer that question, I don't think so. No. Right. Get that man his own microphone.
This might be a question for everyone in the audience, in case someone might know. Is Venus, with Venus so close to the sun during 2027, will it be bright enough to block out other stars, even if we have telescopes out there?
Will Venus be bright enough to block other stars out?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No, it's bright, but it's nowhere near that bright. Right.
Good.
Great. Anybody else?
All right, let me check Zoom.
Okay.
Yeah, these temples in Egypt are temples of Amun-Ra, the god of the sun. It's quite interesting that the sun is coming to visit.
Indeed.
Should be a spectacular experience, both from thinking about these buildings being built 5,000 years ago, and this is what they were all about. They would be particularly amazed at seeing an eclipse.
Right.
And I think that that's a civilization that was around for thousands of years. I don't think they were intimidated by eclipses. I suspect they could have anticipated them. So maybe a civilization that might have had a good story about an eclipse.
All right, and there's no questions on Zoom, so anything from social media? No social media either.
Okay. Well, again, thank you. Oh, one more.
One more. Hang on, Gus, I'm coming.
11 days. 11 days in Egypt. Right.
Yeah, Gus asked how long the entire trip was, so it's 11 days.
Well, thank you again.
Michael, thank you so much for coming. And you'll have to update us on how this trip is developing as the time approaches. And let us know if they do get any clouds between now and then, so we can hold you to that. I don't see Eric here tonight. Eric Kokoschka? Erica Koshka is a member who does our planetary report. And he usually gives a presentation to us here at the meeting. And I don't see him, so I guess we're not going to have that tonight. He does, though, put the planetary report on the website. So if you look at the landing page of the website, his blog is to the right. Click on the month and you'll see his report. It'll go planet by planet, tell you what's up, what you can observe. It's always a very, very good report to help all of us who are trying to visit the planets each month. That website is the TucsonAstronomy.org website. Lots of information there, including Eric's report. We will go to a little something that's special tonight. Most of you know the Astronomical League. The Astronomical League is an organization of some 300 clubs across the country that helps those clubs to organize their members in terms of observations, in terms of doing activities that are very well structured. So it helps you to walk through observing the Messiers or observing the Herschels or other categories of astronomical objects in a way that really enhances your exploration of those objects. Gives us advice on how to do that, describes materials in doing some of these activities, but none of them can be done easily unless an individual knows how it all works, how the league works, and if they work with a local Astronomical League coordinator like ours, Doug Smith, they have the chance to get through those programs and earn a reward for that. And usually we have a certificate and a little pen, and we have quite a few members who have done that over the years. We've got hundreds of awards that have been granted, and it all depends a lot on not only their personal initiative, but the help of getting that coordinated through Doug, through our coordinator. And tonight, I'd like to recognize Doug with a special award from the Astronomical League. It's the Observing Award, or the Observing Program Mentor Award, for his work with so many of our members, helping them to accomplish what they have all earned in terms of their pins. And Doug, would you come on up and please? If anybody deserves this, this is the man. Thank you, Doug, for your service. Okay, I think it's probably time to say goodbye to social media.